Three, two, one. I'm John Miglosh for the WDMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. Well, today we want to talk about measurement, and I wanted to start with the article that got me going on it, which I thought was an interesting one, and it's about Myers-Briggs testing. It really did the whole history of it. It's in the New Republic, and it's fascinating. Really a kind of a mom and her daughter. The mother was born in like 1875, and the daughter was born in 1890 or something like that, 95. And the mother got fascinated with the idea of segmenting people, that everybody's cut out for something, and the daughter really took it the next level. But the mother had set up the nursery and to sort of program her daughter to be a genius, which it didn't turn out that she became a genius, but she was pretty diligent. And so just a fascinating article, but it was really, really interesting. See, here's the book it's based on, The Personality Brokers, and the strange story of Myers-Briggs and the birth of personality testing. And what it basically comes down to is that there's no real basis. The mom borrowed heavily from the Quaternio of Cognitive Types by Carl Jung, and I've read that, Ich und Du, in German. Maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't, that they're introverts and extroverts, but I also read the book called Thinking Fast and Slow, where the author was hired by the Israeli army to try and predict who would become on the battlefield a good officer, really like a hero kind of officer. And they were they came to the conclusion that they completely couldn't do it. That the guys they thought were washouts turned out to be great, and the guys that they thought were absolutely cut from the right cloth turned out to be washouts. And yet they kept the same procedures, they kept the same testing. It's a fascinating book, and basically it really was about confirmation bias, and how once we get the metrics set, we do everything in our power to make them work and make them fit, make the data fit where we want to go. And that's where I want to go next. And that is how Pepsi and Sky is Sky Entertainment, Sky Sports, and Sky Theaters and stuff over in the UK. It's a whole entertainment industry. But you can buy the Sky channel. You think they only get the BBC in the UK? No, they get Sky too. They get some other things too. But anyway, so what it said was that Pepsi, this was really interesting. It was really interesting from the perspective of how we measure and what we measure. And I've been trying to give you this epistemology for years, really, decades. I've been trying to say to the marketing industry, how you know what you know matters. My very first list broker handed me 6 data cards, and he said, "Here, try these lists." I said, "Well, what are they like? Why'd you pick them?" He said, "Just try them, and if they work, let me know, and if they don't work, let me know, and I'll get you ones that are, better." Well, I didn't buy that. I didn't buy just that. He might have been able to do it. I got myself a different list broker. I said, "Give me all the lists you think might make sense." And so it was like, a book like that, hundreds. And then I got a second list broker, and he gave me a book like that, and they didn't overlap that much. That was the interesting part. And I said, "Whoever gives it to me first, I'll give credit to. I'll buy it from you." So there was an incentive for them to pad the lists, and they still didn't overlap that much. It was fascinating. And I tried to quantify the variables around list selection, and it was difficult, but I think I did an okay job. But it was certainly different than... Why would he do that? Dismiss. You're going to have to text me if so I'm not going to talk on the phone in the middle of this. Anyway, and maybe the sound isn't working. Yeah, sound is working. Everything's working. Okay, so anyway, Pepsi said there were as many KPIs and tracking metrics as there were combinations of brands and countries. And so that's, let's say they're in 60 countries and there's 20 brands, that's whatever. That's 1,200 metrics, okay? And the bottom line here was that you could always find an answer to support the position you were trying to push forward. That's the important part. Okay, let's see. Let's go over here and see if anybody's writing to me. I see Keith, and that's all I see. So if you're trying to write me, try and write me through the Periscope. See if that works. I see lots of hearts. I see the most hearts I've ever seen before. Hot dog. Anyway, so the point is that if you measure everything, you can find something that matters. But okay, here's the epistemological puzzle. Which is better, to have a scale that reads 10 pounds off consistently, or to have 10 different scales that are all off a little? And the answer is the first one. Be better off with relative change in terms of weight loss and gain than in having a consistency, even if it's not accurate at all, than you would in having a whole plethora of measurement that was different all the time. Or you change scales every day. Got a new scale every day. And that's what's going on here, okay? And Sky was even better. This was really fun. Sky said they had 900 people calculating 2,000 KPIs. KPI is Key Performance Indicator, in case you don't know what KPI is, okay? And they wanted to get it down to 12. They managed to get it down to 30. That's pretty good, okay? But the point is, in this day of where we think real-time analysis is everything, no, you need to have trends. You need to see what's happening, what's changing, and you need time to see that. And that's the most important part that people lose. People are losing this idea that time is positive, that time can tell you things that otherwise you don't know. And that is a difficult thing to get across. So Sky actually reduced the number of people in its insights function from 900 to 140. Oh, what a catastrophe. Well, you know. In the end, they said profitable growth is the only important KPI. You know, and that's way at the end. Now, you like to have these indicators because that tells you if you're climbing or crashing or tipping, you know, like in an airplane. But at the end, altitude is good. Altitude is everything for the most part. Anyway, so now let's go on to the next one. Okay. Now, this was an interesting article because it basically said, in businessesgrow.com, it said we're too paranoid about the benchmarks. It was great. The beginning of the article was great. Two of the most painful questions for marketers. They're given a pitch and they say, how do we know this is going to work? And of course you don't. It's the future. I've always said in building databases, the challenge is that you always have a known cost. We're going to charge you this much to build it versus an unknown gain. Well, how do we know this is going to be better? You don't. And it's that way with every variable. And that's why when companies build databases and they charge you to build every variable, it's just not fair. Because you'll get a cost. It's going to be $5,000 to build that variable. Well, what's it going to do for us? Maybe nothing. A lot of them do nothing. And it's not because it's a bad idea. You know, we build that werewolf variable into every database we build now. And some clients it works like crazy and some it doesn't work at all. It's not the variable's fault. It has to do with the context of your business. And this is what it reveals. It reveals context. Even if it doesn't work, it reveals something. So they said, you know, you do your pitch and they ask you about the benchmarks, and then you say, okay, so we dug up some benchmarks. Here's some Google open rates and non-bounces and CTR. And they'll ask you, well, are these for the automotive industry? We're in the automotive industry. These might be generic. We need them for the automotive industry. Is this for the United States? Well, we need them for just the state of Washington, maybe just Seattle. Is this for a target audience with an interest to ours? Is this data 2 years old? You know, and you can ask those questions forever. And you get down to two companies that aren't at all like you and don't even use email at all. So what this guy settles on is return on spend, return on ad spend. So you spend $20,000, it generates $200,000, and that's 11 times ROS. Now the problem here is that I had a client, Daniel Smith, and they hired a bunch of digital guys, and the digital guys with a straight face said, well, our sales from this program are above our ad spend, and they thought it only had to be 1-to-1. And 1-to-1 doesn't pay the bills. And when I explained it to them, they looked like a deer in the headlights. So don't be too crazy about benchmarks. And the last article I thought was really excellent, which isn't on here. Maybe it's over here in the other section. And it was from a guy named John Haggerty. And he talked about how how people don't know. I've never believed in giving customers what they want. I've always believed in trying to inspire people because people don't know what they want, which is why predicting the future is especially difficult. You don't know what you want. I don't know what I don't want. And Watson and AI doesn't know what I want either.